Man, this is Deion Dawkins, man, and you're listening to The Scoop on OwlScoop.com. You already know.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Scoop, the weekly podcast of OwlScoop.com. I'm your host, John DiCarlo. Almost a full house.
This might be a full house for us now.
I don't know. Johnny said that it wasn't going to be his last episode, but...
Met Johnny in person for the first time on Saturday. Didn't mention coming on The Scoop. Seemed like he was done with it.
He said, this is not going to be my last episode. There was a beautiful picture, though. Meg took that picture, portrait mode.
Me doing the Kyle show and Johnny getting ready to work, having to watch me.
I mean, how did it go? Did you guys embrace? Did you hug?
We bro hugged, yeah. I mean, I don't even know if it was like a hug. We dapped each other up. It was fine. I wanted him in full Brewers uniform. He did not come out in full Brewers uniform.
Was that disappointing at all for you?
Yes, that's why I said I wanted him in Brewers uniform. So when he came out not in what I wanted, that was disappointing.
Did you also rejoice in the fact that the Phillies just got their asses handed to them that day?
I did rejoice in the fact that I was able to be at McGillen's by the bottom of the fifth. So it's a good day for me.
Yeah. That's Kyle Gauss, by the way. Jason Yevis, Ryan Mack, Colin Schofield with us on The Scoop. Kind of packed episode, guys. Got a lot of stuff to get to. Thanks for bearing with us as we took a week off. We're back, episode 46. Got a new basketball recruit to talk about. We broke some news about Adam Fisher's staff that we'll need to talk about. Got some audio from Casey Keeler and Adam Fisher from Tuesday night's Temple Takeover event, which looked like it was pretty well attended. And of course, you're going to get answers to all of your mailbag questions as well, and some more fun with On Around the State, which has become Jay's empire now. The Scoop, as always, brought to you by Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured while on the road or the highway and the crash was someone else's fault, the insurance company will not be on your side. You need us, Temple law grads, who will fight hard to get the compensation that you deserve. We only get paid if we win. So in Pennsylvania or New York, call us today at 215-261-7359. That's 215-261-7359. And you can find them on the web at greenspans-law.com. That's greenspans-law.com. An exciting announcement to make. I want to tell our listeners about the Rivals On3 subscription integration and merger. We are going to be part of that merger, that partnership with On3. Really, really excited about it. Obviously, if you are currently an OwlScoop.com subscriber, you're going to get grandfathered into that, so nothing is going to change for you. But Kyle, tell people about what they're going to get with this new partnership with On3.
Yeah, so I mean, I think the biggest takeaway is that it should be fairly seamless. If you're a current OwlScoop.com subscriber, you will now receive access to essentially everything On3 offers. In addition to that, Shannon Terry mentioned today that the current setup with On3 is essentially going to be, if you subscribe to OwlScoop, that also gets you access to the VIP message boards of every other site in the On3 Rivals umbrella. We're still going to exist, obviously. We're kind of in that in-between world of Rivals and On3, where Rivals, the brand, is still going to be the premier recruiting service in the nation, right? There's still going to be the Rivals camps. The Rivals ratings are going to still be heavily in this. On3 will then cover more of the actual game stories day to day, and us as OwlScoop.com, the Temple affiliate for both On3 and Rivals, will kind of live in that in between, where we're still going to cover recruiting, we're still going to cover basketball recruiting, we're still going to break news for football recruiting. We are also then going to still provide game day coverage and be the premier authority on Temple athletics. So if you haven't subscribed yet to OwlScoop.com, it's a good opportunity to do so. It gets you a lot more than it might have gotten you a year ago. And obviously, if you are in OwlScoop, a current OwlScoop.com subscriber, you're grandfathered in, you got a lot more bang for your buck. So we appreciate everybody that has been here from the beginning, and we appreciate hopefully the new people that are going to be coming in with this new agreement. I, for one, am excited, like On3, and now we're kind of Ron 3.
Ron 3. We all need to grow.
Yeah, I don't know if I like that one. Let's keep that one in the ball.
Look. Can't all be winners. Sometimes you shoot from the hip. I am a volume shooter. I have been very vocal with that from the beginning. I am volume. I'm gonna get my 14 points. It might some nights it takes 6 shots and a couple free throw things. Sometimes it takes 22 shots. So
I kind of liked it, Ron 3. Grow mustaches. We could all, Colin, you got some work to do. The rest of us could. Jay could just take down his beard, have a mustache, right? You could have a mustache. Colin, how long would it take you to grow a mustache and be Ron Schofield?
Probably like a month-ish. I'd have to go that entire month without seeing my girlfriend because she would not approve at all.
Hmm.
Um, but I could probably do it in a month, I think. I have to look up some ways maybe, make it look good and not just like crap all over my face, but I could do it.
We'll talk to Julia, see what we can do. So Ron 3, new arrangement. But no, honestly, I've always admired the work that On Three's done. So we're really, really excited, happy to be joining up with them. All right, let's talk about Temple basketball, Temple men's basketball's most recent addition. We've been talking over the past several weeks about how, the roster started to come together, but they needed a proven ball handler. They feel like they have gotten that. And University of Illinois Chicago point guard Jordan Mason, it's an important piece for them. Again, given their need for a proven ball handler, staff had him in for an official visit last month, probably a few weeks ago at this point. Adam Fisher mentioned at the Temple Takeover event earlier this week that the staff had been on him for, quote, a long time. So again, it's been a few weeks since they had him in. He left without committing. I was told by a couple of sources, Iowa even came in recently and was recruiting him before he decided to commit to Temple and sign. He averaged 9.6 points, 3.3 assists, 3.4 rebounds per game this past season. Led the Flames with a shade over 30 minutes per game. Played his first 2 seasons of college ball at Texas State. He's from San Antonio originally. Averaged career high in 12.9 points per game at Texas State as a sophomore before transferring to UIC in the Missouri Valley Conference. So he's 6'4". He's listed at 6'4", 175. He told me when I talked to him yesterday, he's probably up closer to like 185, 190. So he's taller and longer as opposed to like a shorter drive and dish guy. Let's talk about the obvious, guys. They've got one more potential scholarship spot to add. Could be a developmental high school guy. They still could be pursuing someone else in the portal. But what does this addition mean for them?
It gives them someone to handle the ball. I know, obviously, we kind of saw the way the roster was right now. Aiden Bison could maybe be that guy because he had done that a couple times when Ponte Berry wasn't on the court and when Jamal Mashburn was hurt towards the end of the season. But honestly, you just really want someone to just come in and that be their main job. You're able to kind of get someone, be their main ball handler, be the facilitator, and someone doesn't have to be that kind of like Heisser Miller role 2 years ago where it's like you need to come in, gotta be a scorer and also be a facilitator as well because you kind of saw that wasn't his main thing and it ended up hurting the team on offense. So I feel like bringing someone in whose just job is going to be make plays, be a playmaker, be a facilitator. It's going to be help this team a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think to echo what Ryan said, I think it gives you a primary ball handler. He's a guy that had, granted, it's against Evansville. He's a guy that had 9 assists and 0 turnovers in a game. Honestly, I can't tell you the last time that happened as a Temple player. From what I can tell from my Excel sheet whirling over here, hasn't happened in the last 25, 30 years. So for some guy who, if you listen to the full interview, which is available on OwlScoop.com, a proud member of the Ron 3 network, he's somebody that's getting more comfortable in that role. Like
Jay loves Jay. Sorry, Jay might be your biggest fan so far of the Ron Thief. He said he wasn't, but
coming around.
he's just smiling. He's smiling on camera.
Yeah, honestly, like the as I heard it, I was like, all right, not gonna lie, it's growing on me. It still needs a little bit of work. Like maybe I need to hear it a couple more times throughout the episode, but
we're
continue.
workshopping it. It'll get normal.
Yeah.
It's like when you like move and you gotta learn your new address and it sounds weird at first, and then fast forward a month and you're like, yeah, that's where I live. So that's where we live now. Like he's a guy who, when he first burst onto the D1 scene, one, wasn't playing that much, and two, even when he was not a primary ball handler. So getting more like familiar with that role. This will be like his 2.5 year of kind of being that role. He said in the interview, the 3-point whatever assists that he averaged, not enough. Like he needs to average more than that and keep the turnovers down. So I know Adam Fisher has said like we got a lot of guys that can do it. I think they wanted a guy that will do it. Like this will be the primary ball handler. If he all of a sudden becomes a guy that averages 6 assists and keeps his turnovers at 1.7, then like that's an invaluable piece and kind of like a missing piece in the roster configuration.
So as Kyle mentioned, I did talk to him yesterday. And as Kyle also mentioned, OwlScoop.com subscribers can get access to the full conversation. We're going to play first part of our conversation, first couple minutes of it, with Jordan Mason talking about why he committed to Temple and why he took his time with the decision. And then on the other side of that, we'll talk to you about the coaching news that I'm sure you're aware of right now. And then we'll get into more stuff about the league, about football, the mailbag, on around the state, and the rest of the good stuff we have ahead for you. I know the program announced it yesterday. When did you actually commit to the staff and let them know?
That was Monday night. that I let them know.
What was their reaction when you let them know?
It was pretty late, so he couldn't. Coach Chris was trying to be quiet, but he was super excited. So it was just great being able to just knowing that their excitement was the same as mine.
I know that you had other options, but I know you kind of wanted to take your time with this. At the end of the day, why did you pick Temple? Why did you choose them?
I think like the most important thing for me is just being somewhere where there's people that believe in you and they see like they just kind of like honestly more than anything having people who believe in you and see the work that you put in. That was most important for me. And then just when I was on my visit, like it was like the family environment there was like it stood out so much. Like I really felt at home when I came up and got to meet the coaches and everybody. So those two things were big for me.
When it got down to it, I'm sure a bunch of schools reached out to you in the portal. At the end of the day, were you choosing between, like, who else were you choosing between? Was it Temple and a couple other programs?
Yes, I had a couple other programs that I was choosing between, but honestly, like I knew for a pretty long time that it was Temple. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't, rushing myself into the decision and not just not thinking it all the way through.
What was it like deciding this time around? Because obviously this is your second time transferring, and it's just the new norm of college basketball. I don't know if what the decision was like the first time around when you went to UIC, but when you're doing it again and saying, okay, this is my second time around, this is my last season, is it kind of like, is there something in the back of your head where like, all right, this is my last season, I would really want to make sure I get it right? Is that why you really took your time with it?
Yes, definitely. I think the biggest thing for me is going to a winning program, a winning culture. Because my goal is to go to the NCAA tournament, and I mean, I know that Coach Fish and the rest of the staff, their goals align with that, and like you can see it in the program. Like they've been winning the last couple of years, and they've come up short a couple times of going to the tournament, but you can see the vision, and I mean, I feel like our goals align in that aspect, and that was another really important piece for me.
All right, so Jordan Mason, an important piece, an important addition for this team. We do expect them to add another player. We'll keep you posted on that as well as we continue to report on this and source things out. So more to come there. Broke the news yesterday. And this was something that had started to develop several weeks ago. We got asked about it. Chris Clark is, in fact, leaving Temple to become head basketball coach and the assistant athletic director at St. Joe's Prep. They have announced it by now. We broke the story yesterday. Again, if you recall, there was a tweet out there a few weeks ago. I forgot the account that put it out there first, and I'm forgetting again. Don't want to deny them credit. But when we had asked around about it, we'd heard that nothing was imminent. But as is the case sometimes, it takes a little while for things to develop. We got some mailbag questions about it. As I understand it, there was some more support there to get Chris on board. I think Aaron McKee was a part of that. So now in the future, Chris Clark is going to be coaching. Aaron has now what? So Jaron's going to Dayton. Aaron has twin sons coming up right now. And so he's going to be coaching them in the future. So I'm happy for Chris. It's his alma mater, probably a better work-life balance for him. Adam mentioned this right on Tuesday, Ryan, like that it's just, this is a 24/7 job now with the portal. There really is no off season. It's an opportunity for him to stay home and be a head coach. So we have a few names that we've heard about for potential replacements. We'll be reporting that in time to subscribers when the time is right. We would just want to source this out a little bit more before we start throwing names out there. Also, Lynn Greer is not returning to the chief of staff role. So we'll talk about that as well in the coming weeks. Have a couple of names there that we've heard about, but again, don't want to throw them out there. If and when we do, we'll put them out there first for subscribers. So the staff is changing a little bit. Happy for Chris. Known him for God knows how long now, covered his career as a player, and it's official now. So we'll be talking about that in the coming weeks, and there will be a new bench assistant there for Adam Fisher's staff. Quick update to pass along on the American Athletic Conference front. Conference tournament is moving to Birmingham. Both conference tournaments, men's and women's, moving to Birmingham for next season, and then Tampa for the 2 seasons after that. Guys, as rising seniors, you're gonna miss out on covering stuff in Tampa, but
don't worry, you can get a Southwest flight down there for $17. You can find your way down to Tampa. It's not like you miss the opportunity to cover a game in Paris. Like, you can get to
Yeah,
Tampa.
yeah. Get some grilled grouper at some point in your lives. So I think we mentioned the new revenue initiative on the episode 2 weeks ago, or maybe we didn't. The American Rising Ventures. So, obviously Tim Pernetti is moving things around as the conference commissioner. We'll have more to report there for you as well. All right, if you read OwlScoop, you know that I had a chance recently to catch up with Ken Meir. He's one of the new offensive line transfers, played 3 seasons of JUCO ball, and then recently committed to Temple after 1 season at Lindenwood, an FCS program. He redshirted there, but Ken's got a really interesting life story. He graduated from one of the top academic high schools in the entire country, not just in California, out in Palo Alto, but from Gunn High School, one of the better academic high schools in the nation. He studied 6 different languages. He moved around when he was a kid. He's lived in 3 different countries. He's pursuing a career in cybersecurity. Really, really bright guy, and really enjoyed our conversation. But he talked a lot about, hey, I've worked my way up to this level. I really want to win. I really want to be part of this offense. I'm here to win. That's what I'm here for. So a guy that will now head into preseason camp in August, competing for snaps with a player like an Eric King, other guys that are going to be worked into the guard rotation, whether it's Eric King, Jackson Pruitt, players like that. We'll see what they do with Luke Watson, but really enjoyed our conversation. Again, you can check out the full story. It was out just a few days ago on June 2nd about him, about his story, about how he got to this level, to the FBS level of football. We'll play part of our conversation here, and we'll have more for you on the other side after that. How much do you know about a guy like Giovanni McCoy, a guy that, I know there's going to be a quarterback competition in camp, but you're either going to be blocking for him or Evan Simon, but Giovanni's played at a high level, both you guys being West Coast guys. Have you had a chance to meet him or even just watch what he's done in his career?
I mean, I think what he's done is fantastic. Regardless of who I block with, they'll get 100% out of me, regardless if it's Giovanni back there or any other quarterback. Quarterbacks need heroes too.
Where do you think some strengths are of your game, whether it's like your footwork, your hands? Where do you feel like you are now as a player, and like maybe what are some goals you have over the summer in terms of improvement?
I think my strengths are just pass protection. Don't give up a lot of pressures. You give up a lot of sacks, it's going to be a bad deal for the entire offense.
Yeah.
If the quarterback is anxious, he can't stand in the pocket and command the offense, it's going to be a bad day for the entire offense. I feel like I also do excel in zone run schemes, but I'm no stranger to 2-gap scheme either. We can go run wide zone and, stretch guys sideline to sideline, but, I also love double teams and pulling and, kicking guys out.
If you had to explain to like a fan who doesn't know that much about that offense, just the athleticism that it requires, the mental capacity that it requires, I'm sure it can be fun, but there's a lot to it. What's it like?
Well, in my opinion, we're the type of offense that Coach Walker runs is we're going to wear guys down. We're going to wear the defense down. We're going to create mismatches. We're going to create situations that are favorable for us, and then we're going to make plays.
Are there offensive linemen that you look up to in the NFL, or like college guys that you've studied? And I know every player is different, but are there guys that you've studied and said, I really look up to this guy, I like the way he handles himself off the field, or I like the way he plays on the field?
I actually study a lot of Coach Jeff Stoutland's stuff.
I was literally just going to ask you about him. That's funny, yeah.
Yeah, he's the offensive line coach for the Eagles, obviously, as you know. I think he's probably one of the best O-line coaches the NFL has ever seen. And, as a guard, I liked Quentin Nelson. I liked Landon Dickerson, Trey Smith for the Chiefs. Isaac Seumalo and the Steelers. I'm a Steelers fan personally, so I do watch a lot of Isaac Seumalo tape.
You mentioned Jeff Stoutland, and here in Philadelphia, it's a crazy NFL city, but by now, Eagles fans know so much about him because of what he did with Jason Kelce, what he did with a guy like Jordan Mailata, who was a rugby player. And here in Philly, people know about him, and people talk about the Jeff Stoutland University thing, and I think it really has educated people about that like Eagles fans will think that like Jeff Stoutland can take anybody and like make him into an offensive lineman and coach him up. How do you view the art of playing offensive line. I know that some guys have God-given talents and some of them utilize it and some don't. But you mentioned Stoutland. How much, when you study what he's done, what's it like to, he might be down at the link at some point when you guys are playing. Like, some of those coaches are known to stick around and watch a Temple game. What's it like just being in the same city with him, and what do you think has made him a successful coach and a guy that's developed as many players as he has?
First of all, being in the same city is fantastic, but offensive line is a very, like, if you think about it, it's a very unnatural position. You always have your back to the ball, and you're blocking guys in front of you. You have completely no reference to where the running back. You have an idea where the running back's going to lead you to play, but plays break down, improvisation happens, and I think Jeff Stoutland has figured out a way to make it make sense for offensive linemen. I think that's how he develops it. How he develops so many guys.
Just having played the position for a while, and you talk about like having your back to the ball. I mean, I'm sure there's a ton that goes into watching film preparation. How much, if you had to explain this to fans, how much of it is just a feel where, like, you know where the quarterback's going to go? Obviously, you know the play call, but if a quarterback has to improvise, or if a back, sees something and cuts the other way, how much of it is based on feel?
Oh, I mean, I would say a ton. I mean, even if you think about pass protection, you're essentially backpedaling, but you can't go too far because you'll be in the quarterback's, lap.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a 300-pound man jumping off the ball and running at you as far as possible. And then you have to stop your own self to stop him and allow enough time for the quarterback. And then, a play breaks down, quarterback starts scrambling, you have to block for 6, 7, 8 seconds. And a lot of that is based on feel and where you think the quarterback is. Where you can position yourself that you are between the quarterback and the defensive player.
What is it that you like about pass protection? Because it sounds cliche, but like, you talk to a lot of offensive linemen, and the first thing they talk about is run blocking. They love just blowing people off the line of scrimmage and wearing guys down. And I know there are a lot of different ways you can do that, but some guys don't mention pass protection first. And I'm sure you like to run block as well, but what is it that you like about pass protection and the art of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love run blocking too, but it's like I said, if you have a quarterback that's nervous and he doesn't want to get hit, it will mess up his game. And then the rest of the offense can't. If we can't function as an O-line unit, the rest of the offense cannot function. The receiver can run the best around the world. The quarterback is being pressured and sacked. It doesn't matter.
So again, if you're an OwlScoop subscriber, you can read all about Ken on OwlScoop. There's a longer story there for you guys to learn more about his career, what he could potentially bring to this Temple offensive line. Kyle's had you covered all along about things going on the recruiting front. Big official recruiting official visit weekend for Temple this weekend, correct, Kyle?
Yeah, I think some other programs have kind of been doing, sprinkle official visit weekends where, like, it's been last week and then next weekend. Well, Temple's really focused on this weekend, and then 2 weekends from now, the weekend in between will be their big recruiting camp, just like their prospect camp. So by the time you hear this, maybe there'll probably be a site up. I think that article will be published tomorrow morning. But this is the largest recruiting weekend that I can remember in recent memory. I think you're going to have, not to spoil too much, you're having double-digit visitors. A large number of them have Power 4 offers. It's a pretty significant weekend, just even with some of the level of talent that they'll be getting on campus. So as we all know, it's early June. A commitment is just a verbal commitment, but if they were able to snag some of these guys early on, that would be a step in the right direction. Subscribe to OwlScoop.com.
Yeah, again, you're missing out if you have not subscribed. Kyle's really been at the forefront of a lot of this coverage, and obviously some of these guys have tweeted out news of their official visits, but they definitely seem to be, following the model of like, hey, we're going to aim high. And not that Casey has actually like necessarily said this, but yeah, some of these guys that they're getting on campus, maybe ultimately their recruiting profile continues to rise and they ultimately maybe don't get these kids. But we've seen in the past, what ends up happening is maybe they get like a high 4-star kid on campus. Maybe he ultimately ends up going to Tennessee or Michigan. But what the staff hopes for is that kid goes back to his program and says, hey, man, I really like what I saw at Temple. I may not be able to pass up $1 million in rev share at a Oklahoma or an LSU or something like that, but there's a lot of good stuff going on at Temple. So it's just as much in terms of like just building a reputation. And then these guys go back to other programs like a Don Bosco prep or like a St. Joe's prep or whatever, and kind of spread the word about Temple. So they definitely do not seem to be shying away from taking big swings at some highly ranked guys. So again,
Yeah, and real quick to your point that a lot of this stuff's public. I mean, kids do tweet out official visits. I'll just say there are people on this list that have not tweeted out publicly that they will be visiting. So
yep.
again, proactive versus reactive. Please subscribe to OwlScoop.com.
Good stuff there, Kyle. We'll talk more, as I said, we'll talk more football in the mailbag. With that, let's head to honor on this date to a very happy Jason Nieves. Your team is in the NBA Finals, and we thank God that the Knicks are not in the NBA Finals. Jay, wait real quick before we get to honor on this date? I mean, how you feeling? Or do you just not want to talk about
Terrified.
it all?
Yeah, I have my Shea jersey on right now. And it's a mixed bag. Because I've watched the team grow from wherever they were in 2020 to now. And even before that, I've been an OKC fan since the KD and Russ era, which I still despise Kevin Durant to this day. But yeah, it's great to see them in this position. And I'm very nervous, but I feel relatively confident.
I'm sorry. Have you had to suffer a lot for your franchise that isn't old enough yet to drink? Has that been a
Yeah, okay.
long running road of
And
just
I'm not gonna
disappointments?
I'm not gonna drag it out and be like, oh, we went through this major,
No,
process. Like it was 3 years where I was
you
like,
were
but
allowed
it
to
was
go through that process. You didn't have Brian Colangelo forced upon you when you started going through that process.
I had Damian Lillard reset my entire franchise. I just that to me stinks. Like,
I
but
will say
I do get what
you
you mean.
shouldn't be terrified. They are
Yeah.
plus 700 or minus 700 favorites. Like they should
I know. Yeah,
gentlemen sweep the Pacers.
I'm saying OKC in 6 to be generous, because I don't want to be too aggressive and their dark magic comes in. I'm just scared. Okay, it's very natural, but this is it's looking like a good sports year for teams I
If there's
support.
any weekend games that are in Indiana, there will be no home court advantage. So it'll be fine. Okay. All the businessmen will have left Indianapolis for the weekend, so there will be no advantage.
Love Indiana Kyle.
You would not have loved Indiana.
Indiana Kyle in the Last Crusade. Indiana Kyle in the Temple of
I think Raiders of the Last Ark was the best. Was the best one.
Indiana
I
Kyle
skip
in the
over
Temple
Temple
of
of Doom
Tacos.
most of the time. Temple of Doom I skip over.
Really?
I can't tell you the exact names of them. I just know like the synopsis of each movie.
It's basically what's Connery's role in it. If Sean Connery's not in it, then
Was he in the
he was in Last Crusade.
Last Crusade? Okay. Yeah.
Is that the He Chose Poorly one?
Yeah, when they get the Holy Grail at the end.
Yeah.
They use the Holy Grail to heal Sean Connery's bullet wound.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
It was the cup of a carpenter.
Welcome to On Around This Date. I'm your host, Jason Nieves, the one and only host. And Kyle, since you are so interested and I appreciate the enthusiasm, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to choose if you want to start with birthdays or events.
We're going to start with events today.
Okay, perfect. I got the perfect one for you. This U.S. president died on June 5th, 2004.
Reagan?
It is Reagan.
Oh, yeah. I was
Oh
in
my
Chicago.
God.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was in
Wow.
Chicago for a Braves Cub or a Braves White Sox game. And I remember they illuminated one of the buildings. I should have known that.
Kyle, you're slacking on presidential trivia.
I know.
Ooh. Another death here. This author who wrote Fahrenheit 451 died at the age of 91 on June 5th, 2012.
That's Vonnegut, right?
No,
No.
Orwell.
No.
Is it George Orwell?
No, that's not Orwell.
Nope.
No.
Oh, Ray Bradbury.
It is Ray
Yeah.
Bradbury.
Okay.
Oh, for two. Yeah. Cool.
Right.
All right, my final event, June 6, 1944. This event took place led by General Dwight D. Eisenhower in northern France.
John, do you have the answer for this?
Normandy.
D-Day, yeah, Normandy,
Yeah, D-Day.
Operation Overlord. Today is the day. They on the 5th they released the letter that Eisenhower sent to every member of that was going through D-Day, and they have the original him doing his notes and moving things around. So it was originally supposed to be earlier, and then they had bad weather, so they pushed it back.
Going over to birthdays now. This actor was born June 5th, 1971 in Boston, Massachusetts, and first became famous dropping 2 albums while being a part of a hip hop band.
Wahlberg.
Oh, Mark Wahlberg.
Mackie Mac.
Wahlberg. This football player was born June 6, 1992 in Central South Carolina and is a 5-time Pro Bowler and 3-time All-Pro player.
South Carolina, born 1992.
South Carolina. Can we get a position?
I won't give a position just yet, but I will say some say that he only fears God.
DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
It is DeAndre Hopkins.
He went to Clemson though, right? Yeah, he's from South Carolina.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was he on the Ravens?
All right.
I'm making that up?
Yeah, he's on the Ravens.
Final birthday. This actor was born June 6, 1947 in Glendale, California, and is primarily known for his role in a long-running horror movie series.
You're a horror guy, Jay. You like horror movies?
I love horror movies.
I feel like you've got a fair amount of horror questions in on this segment. Not this one in particular, but overall.
I try to include it in. I would say the first movie came out in 1984. If that helps.
Who played Freddy Krueger?
You tell me. I'm asking you.
Whoever played Freddy Krueger.
What'd you say, John?
Lon Kruger.
You guys you're right there, but yeah, I just need a name.
I could not tell you the actor.
I feel like I've heard his name mentioned before, but it's nothing I've ever retained.
Robert Englund.
Who was what famous actor's first appearance was in Nightmare on Elm Street?
Johnny Depp.
Yeah, seen by the bed, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I watch way too many horror movies.
Kyle, are you a horror movie
Also,
fan?
Not really.
No?
No, not really. Maybe when I was in like high school, I watched a little more, but no, I'm not really seeking those out anymore.
Jay, where were you
Just
going?
watching documentaries.
I was just say I didn't want to make it this a guessing part of it, but shout out Kate Martin. It is her birthday as well. Her birthday is tomorrow, and I think only Sienna would really enjoy that, but just thought that was important to list. But yeah, that's one around this date.
Well, let's jump into the mailbag here as we do with each episode. Our friend Mike Greenspan of Greenspan and Greenspan Injury Lawyers provides a weekly tip to make sure that you're safe in life and safe on the roadways. So here is Mike Greenspan's weekly tip, and then we'll get into the mailbag after that.
How can you protect yourself when you get into a rideshare vehicle? I ask because did you realize that the person responsible for the terrorist attack in Boulder was an Uber driver? First thing you can do is, before you even get into the car, make sure that the driver matches the person who appears on your app. Make sure the license plate matches what you see on the app. And then once you're in the car, observe that driver carefully. Is he or she doing anything that makes you feel uncomfortable? Is there something that is making you feel at all nervous? If any of these things happen, consider this. Ask the driver to pull over immediately, assuming you're not on a highway and someplace can be done safely, and get out of the car. Uber and Lyft also have a function on their app to report an issue with the driver. Don't be afraid to use it. Use your instincts. If you feel uncomfortable, take steps. Don't be a victim.
All right, first question, the mailbag comes from Glenn on Twitter. He says, good vibes at the Temple takeover last night. That was Tuesday night. After hearing Coach Keeler Tuesday night and knowing his track record, is me thinking they're going to be over 500 crazy? Glenn, I don't think that you're crazy. I did take note. Ryan was there for us. You know, I'll say this, we're all covering Casey Keeler for the first time. He's been doing this for a long time. He's 65 years old. He knows what success looks like. I think Casey likes to talk. He likes to, and it's not a shot at him. He's a very talkative, insightful guy. Not that I would expect Casey Keeler to come in and say, this is a monster rebuild. We've really got our hands full here. Everybody's undefeated. He made that remark right at the beginning, and everybody can afford to be optimistic in June. I did find it interesting that he generally seems pretty upbeat about this team. He's been talking a lot about how optimistic he is about the defensive line, and it's not like they really have any tried and true player there are some players I think they can count on, but even like a guy like Carl Harden, they could say, okay, we just lost Maddox Trujillo to the NFL. We saw Carl Harden. We all covered spring ball. He looked good, but he still has to do it when the games count. But yeah, I did kind of take notice of the fact that he generally seems pretty optimistic. And again, I don't think he's not like this 35-year-old first-time head coach who's going to be like really bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and then he learns the hard way and gets his ass handed to him like, oh, maybe I shouldn't put out all these platitudes to the media. But if they went 7-5, is that a hell of a first season? Yes, absolutely. I don't think you're crazy for thinking that. I did take note of the optimism, but what do you guys think about that? Ryan, let me start with you. You were there, again, you're at a crowd event, you're at a fan event. It was very well attended. He's got to match that moment. Again, I don't expect him to be like, hey, everybody, get ready for a really crappy Temple football season. But what was your take on how optimistic he was?
He has been really optimistic about like parts of the team. He talked about the defensive line, the running back room. He's talked about how optimistic he is about the offensive line, how much that caught him by surprise. But also something that I really noticed is he's very brutally honest about his critiques and what he's seeing with the team. If there's something that like they are not doing well, or there's like something that they should be doing better at, a position group, in particular the secondary, he was very clear that they went into the transfer portal to go get some depth and get guys that they can plug in and play at that position. Same thing about the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
He's not gonna act like the team is perfect. He's telling you like, this is what I see, this is what's good, this is what's bad, this is what we're gonna have to improve. And he talked about that a lot on Tuesday. And it also feels like the players are bought in. He told a story about Demarick Morris, about like when he transferred back to Temple from Oklahoma, and some former
Oklahoma
players,
State.
from Oklahoma State,
Yeah.
and he was talking about some of the people on the other old staff were trying to get them to go to their schools where they ended up winding up. And he said, "No, I'm going to go play for a winner. That's why I'm going back to Temple," because he respect KC, even though he hadn't even really like met him and been in the building yet. That's something I've really like to see. And again, just like his just being brutally honest about everything, especially like everything with the quarterback situation. He's very upfront about that, talking about the competition, talking about that competition and what he's seen with that as well.
Yeah. So you think it's a genuine optimism?
Yeah.
What do you guys think? I mean, is Glenn nuts for thinking that, or is he crazy for thinking that they could, be an above 500 team?
I wouldn't necessarily say crazy. I think like especially in today's landscape, anything is possible. I think it's, and not to quote Kevin Garnett, but it's just, I think there's a lot of potential for a team like this, especially when you have a coach who is as talented as Keeler to come in and have the mindset that he does. I do think it's a bit unrealistic that it happens the first season, but I wouldn't be like surprised if it, if especially what happens with the quarterback room and it's figured out and there's some competency moving forward, then there should be an issue with it.
With Jason here, I don't think it's overly crazy, like maybe a little too optimistic for it to come in and happen first year, but with the pedigree Coach Keeler has, it feels like he's brought in good staff and has really attacked this spring transfer window hard with getting depth on the offensive line, a couple wide receivers, a couple more tight ends at the skill positions. Like it feels like they have enough depth and have enough pieces to potentially get to that 500 or better mark. So I don't think it's overly crazy for Glenn to say that, especially with the pedigree Coach Keeler has.
Yeah, we'll play a clip here. This is from KC's session with reporters from Tuesday night. So we'll give you an idea. Now Glenn wasn't obviously there, as far as I know, in the interview with KC Keeler, but Glenn's talking about like his remarks to the crowd. But here's part of KC Keeler's conversation with reporters from Tuesday night. And you can hear, again, any coach is optimistic in June, but here's KC talking tangibly about some of the things that he's excited about this year's team.
Yeah, Coach, you talked about player development. Obviously, Temple's coming off 4 consecutive losing seasons.
Yep.
From those seasons, what can you build on, and what are some things you want to implement?
It's been 4, it's been more like 6, hasn't it?
Or 4 consecutive 3-win seasons, my apologies.
Okay, yeah, no, it hasn't been good for a while. And what we can build, first of all, I think anytime you take over a job, you don't know what you're walking into. What I found by interviewing every player, 4.5 days worth of doing that, I found the kids love going to Temple, and they were very committed to getting this thing fixed. And when you walk into a 3-9 team, very rarely will you find a defensive line like we have. I mean, that's usually one of the weak spots. The two lines are usually where they're going to be the weakest. That defensive line's, I think, going to be one of the better D lines in this league. So I think there's some things that we can hang our hat on. But the thing I can hang my hat on most is what these guys have given us. Like on my first team meeting, I explained there's 5 parts of a season. Winter workouts, then you have spring practice, then you have summer workouts, and you have training camp, then you have the season. The first 2 phases we killed. Winter workouts, those mat drills, those kids were unbelievable. And it was so cool when I talked to the leadership group. We call it an advisory board in the offseason. When I talked to the advisory board, one of the things that made them the proudest was no one was ever late. No one was standing at that door 5 minutes before 6 looking for who's coming. They all were there 15 minutes early. And it just showed that like there was some like organization in the locker room saying, hey, we're going to get this fixed. And the new guy coming in, let's follow his lead. And so I really walked into a great situation where they said, you know, we want to get this fixed. And you know what? You're the guy they chose to fix it. We're going to follow your lead. And we're going to work out spring ball. They've been great. This is such a critical time right now because the way college football works, you're bringing in so many more new players than ever before. And so you need to work on that chemistry, that team building, you know, that culture. And I told the players, I said, the best teams I've ever been around, they embrace the new players. If you want to keep them at arm's length, you're never going to get out of them what you're hoping for. And it was so cool. I'm on the field, and I look over, and there is, we had like a walkthrough today. Tomorrow we'll actually do some OTA work. And I see Evan talking to Giovanni and showing him on some footwork. And I was just at that distance. I'm like, that's who that kid is. That's what a single digit is. A single digit who will put the team above anything else. There Evan Simon is, who desperately wants to be our starting quarterback. And he's telling Giovanni, like, your footwork, and I'm in a distance, and I'm just watching that going, like, we have a chance. Because the quarterback is that position where when you got that kind of leadership, it kind of permeates through the whole team. And that's really why I think we have a chance, because I think our talent's going to be right there with everyone we play, you know. It's going to be these guys believing they can win. I heard a great story about Demeric Morris coming back. And Demeric obviously had some people reaching out to him from the last staff. Like, hey, come play for us. And Demeric goes, I want to go play for a winner. And they went, what are you talking about? You guys have been 3-9. He goes, no. He goes, I'm talking to the fellas right now. They all believe they can win. That goes a long way. If you don't think you can win, you're not going to win. These kids think they can win. And I think we can win. And so, again, it's going to come down to a lot of close games. I think we're built in a way with the special teams, how good our special teams we think can be. You win those close games. I'm hoping with the conditioning that our strength coach can put together, because he's done it before, that those close games come down to conditioning and special teams. But I think we have a chance because the kids that bought in, they want to get it fixed. That's why I think we have a chance.
All right, next question here comes from the handle Off the Hook 3 on Twitter. Any chance the basketball team actually makes the tournament? Last year, the pieces looked individually more accomplished and better, and it was a disaster. Short, boring answer here is we have no idea. Right. We would be just blowing smoke to say this is a tournament team. We talked about this a few weeks ago when Andy Carl was on the podcast. I think that anybody who feels that they have a really, really good handle on what's going on is just acting on faith or just blowing smoke. Again, now does a team like Michigan get that much better by getting a guy like Axel Landenborg to stay and not going to the draft? Of course. We'll talk about this in Keith's question a little bit later on. I think that being able to keep Aiden Tobias and Babatunde Dorodola is huge. Of course, there's a chance. It's June 5th, but the odds are going to be stacked against them to make the tournament. A lot of different pieces have to come together, but I think we're going to be saying that year in and year out now. So I don't want to squelch anybody's optimism here, but I don't know. If you guys want to weigh in on this, on a very, very way too early prediction on the fortunes of this Temple men's basketball team.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pieces they've had like, oh, okay, that makes sense. That's a good get. That guy's established or whatever. But just to echo what you said, it's early June. Any team in the nation except for like the top tier teams that kind of like get those really proven commodities, they're all kind of in the same bucket. Like, it's can they coach them together? Can they gel together? I was thinking about this the other day. Other than Mashburn, when you look back at that transfer portal class from the year before, Elijah Gray had his moments. He also had some bad moments. Jameel Brown did nothing for him. Lindgren III did nothing for them. Like, they essentially had like a 1.5 person transfer portal class that they kind of just like brought into the rest of the team. This is going to be a lot different. You're going to have like 9 guys coming in that all have a chance or an expectation to compete. So I'm sure the way that they gel together will look a lot different next week when they start doing a little bit organized workouts compared to what it'll look like in October and November. So anybody that tells you anything about any sport at this point with any type of definitive, authoritative tone, like predicting wise, is just lying to you.
Yeah, I think it's
Oh, go
difficult
ahead.
to sit there and especially looking at it on paper, be like there isn't a heavy hitter in this, like at least so far in this transfer portal like Jamal Mashburn Jr. and say like because of that they're not going to stack up to other teams in the conference when like I think the biggest thing is, and Kyle said, is just the gelling and how cohesive they can be as a unit. And I'm really interested to see how that is because I think like you could see like last year's team, like they brought in a heavy hitter like Jamal Mashburn, but they didn't have the cohesive pieces around him to form a really consistent team most of the time. And so if they're, if it means that they're building a team that's more cohesive and has a more altogether put together, process rather than just a ball dominant player that, you're relying on all the time, I think that's like I personally would look at that and say I'm much more interested in that team than last year's team.
Along those lines, a couple good questions coming up here from one of our subscribers. The screen name is Al Worldwide. 3-parter incoming. What's your take on the current squad, a way too early starting 5, and each of your opinions, what does Adam Fisher have to do this year to not lose his job?
Hey.
Way too early starting 5. Colin, go with you first.
As I'm thinking about it, I mean, I think Aiden Tobias and Babatunde Duradola are probably 2 players that all of us can lock into the starting 5. They each started like probably 75. Baba started every game. Aiden Tobias started every game after that Villanova game, I think. So I think those 2 are pretty comfortably in the starting 5. I will put Jordan Mason in that starting group as kind of the ball handler and the facilitator, like kind of we talked about a little bit earlier here. And the last 2 spots, I like the idea of putting Jemai Feltz alongside Babatunde Duradola for defense and rebounding in the front court. Obviously, he's the 2 ACL tears kind of play a factor there with the injury history, but he showed he can play defense, showed he can rebound last year in the MAC. I mean, my last spot with all the transfers, I kind of don't have any concrete ideas kind of between like Messiah Gilliard or Gavin Griffiths. Maybe just kind of like a bigger wing to kind of put out there as my last one.
Jay, what do you think? Go to you next.
Honestly, I kind of agree with most of Colin's picks. I think like having obviously Tobias and Dordola and Mason. I would also lean towards maybe Hines in the starting lineup. I think just the potential he was as like the SWAC tournament MVP. And his output from an offensive standpoint, I think could be good. And my question is like, what type of, and it's very obviously it's very difficult to sit here and say like, oh, they're trying to run this style lineup, they're trying to do this. But I guess I would probably maybe look at like Spencer Mahoney is that last like player in my mind to have that, like I think somebody mentioned before, like that Steve Settle type of role. So yeah.
Kind of gonna piggyback off Colin and Jay here on that. Aiden and Baba, they're kind of locked in.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of like set in stone. Baba started every single game. Aiden started every single game after December. So that's kind of set in stone. For Mason's gonna be that main point guard. I agree with Jay. I think that CJ Hines kind of coming in, kind of being that main like scorer, that scoring threat. I could kind of see him being in there. And that for that 4th person, I haven't talked about him a lot too. I'm coming over from Belgium. I low-key want to see how Yuba Bryant comes in. It wouldn't shock me coming in, honestly, taller and the lankier like forward. I wouldn't be shocked if it's Jemai Felt up there. But just seeing how they kind of play, Adam Fisher like how to run his lineup and how he likes to have his offenses kind of run. Having a Yuba Bryant on that starting lineup wouldn't really shock me. Kind of like playing kind of like that Steve Sell role, even like a Sam Hoffman kind of role, that kind of like spark plug in that front court as well. That wouldn't shock me.
Kyle, what do you think of this? Because I think as we talk about it, it is fun. Again, fans, yes, they want to have fun, but they want the team to win. This is a fun exercise for June because there are a lot of possibilities. What do you think?
Yeah, before you even consider an Ayuba Bryant or a Mokita if he takes a step, or if Cam Wallace comes in, like I think there's 10 guys that you can kind of point to and be like, those guys all have significant roles on this team. Does that significant role mean 10 minutes a game? Does it mean 30 minutes a game? Like it's very much like middle of summer talk radio. But I kind of agree with the point of CJ Hines like happened to be like the lead, like the scorer on this team. Because I think it's very easy in the offseason when you're like roster baiting to be like, oh, this is just going to be a balanced offense. We're going to have 7 guys average 11 points a game. Like that's so easy to say. It very, very rarely pans out that way. Like I can think of like 2 Temple teams in the last 15 years where it was like a balanced scoring attack. There's usually only almost always a guy that's like this is the scorer. And CJ Hines is the most accomplished scorer on this team. So I think he's starts. I think Jordan Mason starts. I think Aiden obviously starts. And because you kind of running out like those 3 guards in that situation, I think you kind of need to go with like a bigger hybrid 3-4. So is that Gavin Griffiths? Is that Felt? I'm going to lean towards Griffiths just because he showed it at times at Rutgers. He's not coming off like Felt. It's been a year since those 2 ACLs, but that's still like an issue. And I think just scoring wise, Griffiths stretches the floor more, and then Baba as like a small 5 again. Because I don't think they don't have the true 1996 NBA lineup out there. It's wings, threes, and an undersized center, but it's a lot of college basketball nowadays.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that Aiden and Baba start. I think Jordan Mason will start. And then this is where I think it gets fun and interesting. I would agree with you guys. They really, again, the staff likes all these guys. Otherwise, they wouldn't be bringing them in. CJ Hines has proven he can score in a lot of different ways. He also has NCAA tournament experience. I'd be a little surprised if he's not in the lineup. And then from there, yeah, you look at, do they go with a bigger image and Jemai Felton say, we need a rim protector and a rebounder on the floor right away? Do you put Gavin Griffiths in there as a bigger wing? I'd be a little surprised if Spencer Mahoney starts, but I don't know. Some coaches like to go big right off the get-go and say, like, hey, Spencer, you're going to go in. We're going to see what you can do before the first media timeout. You can go in there and knock down a couple perimeter threes, defend as hard as you can. You can stay on the floor. If not, I'm going to be bringing in somebody else. But I do think there are a lot of interesting and intriguing possibilities there. Ayuba Bryant, on one hand, I want to say, well, he's an incoming freshman. He's also like 20 years old. So very skilled. Kind of looks like comparisons are useless as I'm about to throw a comparison out there. Kind of reminds me of a left-handed Steve Settle, who, by the way, I had Steve on the pod a couple weeks ago, continuing to get a lot of pre-draft workouts. Maybe just maybe sneaks into the second round with more guys, coming back. But sounds like Steve Settle's not hurting himself in these.
At the very least, you're going to see him in Utah. You're going to see him in the summer league team. Like,
oh, absolutely, yeah. So I'm going to go Aiden, Baba, Jordan Mason, CJ Hines, and I'm going to go Gavin Griffiths with Jemai Felt as like your first guy coming off the bench.
Yeah, but isn't that interesting? Because like for as much doom and gloom as there is, and I think we're about to have a mailbag question that's fairly doom and gloom. We all just kind of put together starting lineups and didn't mention like Darren Ford or Gilliard that much. Like 2 like proven college basketball players who are, if they come off the bench, then all of a sudden that's like a relatively established bench for a roster that had 3 scholarship players on it 2 months ago.
Yeah, that leads us into Keith's question here. Keith 90, a screen name from the message board. Convince me how I should be excited for next year's season. This is not just a Temple issue, but bringing in a bunch of players I never heard of and retaining only 2 contributors plus 1 good recruit doesn't get me too excited for next year. Last year, at least we had 5 significant contributors returning, a high-level transfer in Jamal Mashburn Jr., a well-known transfer in Linger III, who obviously didn't work out, and a highly ranked recruit in Dylan Battie, not to mention Tobias, and that people seemed high on. I had a feel for how last year's team could perform on paper, but this year I have no idea, or at best, this year looks to be a mediocre squad. Signed, losing interest. So, Keith, I hear you. And again, we would be fools to sit here and say, oh, this is definitely an NCAA tournament team. We would just be guilty of just trying to, throw out hot takes out there. So try to convince you on why you should have interest in this team. I'm going to try to, and again, I'll definitely tip this over to you guys at some point, but convince you how you should be excited for next year's season. If I'm trying to convince you, I'll start in saying, I think it was a major win for them, working inside out, major win for them. And this, I do mean sincerely. At some point, I thought they were going to lose everybody. And I think losing Aiden Tobias into another program and watching Aiden Tobias and make his freshman to sophomore year leap in another uniform really would have kept Adam Fisher and the staff up at night as much as anything else. Now, I'm not saying that Quante Berry's not a loss to Memphis. I'm not saying that Zion Stanford certainly is not a loss. Seeing him go to Villanova, those guys really would have helped you, particularly Zion. But I think keeping Aiden and keeping Baba, those two guys, as we've mentioned a few times already. I mean, Baba was the first player to start every single game as a freshman since, I believe, Lavoy Allen. I have to fact check that. Those guys played a lot of unselfish basketball last year. Obviously, Baba got into a lot of foul trouble, but it came from effort, rebounding. But Baba was also sealing off driving lanes for a player like Mash, a player like Zion, a player like Quante. And those guys now, you get to keep them in a Temple uniform for another year so they can make that freshman to sophomore year leap. And I think they're going to be looking for their shot more, especially a guy like Aiden. Aiden Tobiasen has as pure a jump shot on the team as anybody else. So I'll start there and say you retain two really, really important players. The next layer I would go to is when Jemai felt committed, probably two or three people reached out to me that have nothing in the, in the interest of full disclosure, not people who get a paycheck from Temple. A couple of people I respect and said, hey, that's a nice get for them. A guy that, he's an interesting story, signed with Bowling Green. He was set to play for Michael Huger. Michael Huger, of course, comes to Temple as Adams' associate head coach due to their connection to Jim Larinaga staff. But, Jemai Felt comes with two separate ACL tears, but finally gets to play his first college season last year. MAC all freshman team, leads the league in blocks. If he stays healthy, Adam Fisher has not had a player or a rim protector like him. So he would be like my next layer of optimism. And then from there, you look at it and you say, okay, now you feel like you're an NFL fan or an NFL reporter, an NFL GM, and saying, like, are you the coach that can get the 4-star ability out of players like Darian Ford, a guy who we barely mentioned in the last question? Darian Ford, former 4-star guard who went to Arkansas, then Arkansas State, or a guy like Gavin Griffiths. If this staff can unlock 4-star potential out of those guys, then you've got something to work with. CJ Hines, a guy who played well in the SWAC conference tournament, got Alabama State to the NCAA tournament. He's a creative scorer. You've got him. And if a guy like a Messiah Gilliard plays this role, I would imagine that they I don't know if Fish has said this on the record. Maybe he said it at the event the other day. They look at Messiah Gilliard like a Shane Dezzoni, top rebounding guard who can play his role, know his role. So I think that there are some pieces there to work with. And I think you really see what the staff is made of this year. If everybody stays healthy, there's no drama. If there's nothing like you dealt with, like with the Lindgren situation, if you don't have a decimating injury like you do to Jamal Mashram with his toe that obviously changed the course of the season, then you've got something to work with. So Keith, I don't blame you for being skeptical. Again, I think you guys, you do this now, you're still in college, but you're essentially doing it for a living. I'm sure you have friends who say, like, I can't follow college hoops anymore. I never know the rosters. It's useless. I can't get attached to anybody. So I get where Keith is coming from, but I don't want to take up the whole answer on this, but if you had to convince Keith here why he should be excited for next season, what else could you tell him? Or are you guys, if you're keeping the reporter hat on and staying as objective as you can be, what would you tell him? Colin, we'll start with you and we'll go to Jay and then work around to Ryan.
I mean, I think the biggest thing you said it, John, is kind of preaching that they retained Baba and Aiden Tobiasen, and we can see that freshman and sophomore year leap that you so rarely see in college basketball now, with players going after the freshman year and transferring up a level or down a level, they didn't get enough playing time. I think Aiden Tobiasen could really have a big year and be that main scorer if it's not CJ Hines, and take that step because we saw it last year from him. I think that's something that Keith can be really excited about to see, is Aiden Tobiasen step up and be a main and top scorer, and then Bobby Adola also grow. And then I think we just we kind of talked about it in kind of guessing the early starting five. Like, there are a lot of pieces on this team that can be mixed and matched into potential lineups that I think you can be excited about as a fan. Like, it feels like there's depth on this team. They've gotten a lot of good pieces. You kind of said it with like unlocking the 4 stars. Darian Ford, who went to Arkansas, Gavin Griffiths, who went to Rutgers, former and Rutgers and Nebraska, former Power 4 guys who are now here, who obviously drew the interest of Power 4 programs and had the talent to be at Power 4 programs. That's something to be excited about, is seeing them. And I think about also getting Ryan mentioned him when talking about the starting five, Ayuba Bryant from Belgium, like a young international kid, see what he could bring too. Another thing to be excited about. So, yeah, you may not know a lot of these names, and it may be tough to be excited about a team that brings in 9 transfers and only returns 2 freshmen. But you said, John, what I said, there's certainly aspects you can be excited about.
Jay, what do you think? How would you sell Keith on being excited for the season?
I would just say patience. I think it's very easy to have a very immediate reaction when you see the amount of things that went wrong for Temple this offseason, where they're losing all these players. Cam Miles flipped his commitment, and
Yeah, we didn't mention
it's
that. Yeah, good point.
it's
Yeah.
very easy to sit there and panic and be like, this team is just going down, all the stuff within athletics, and then all the stuff you see, on the court and how things have played out. But I think the way Adam Fisher and his staff have kind of approached this offseason and just like kind of handling it, I think is a very positive sign where it's like they buckle down and they focus on maintaining two of their young players who they continue to develop over hopefully the next couple of years, and then they go out and they aren't, and I said before, there isn't I think right now you're looking, is like you're not seeing a Jamal Mashburn, ISO scorer on this team, whereas like you can put the load on them and expect them to go out and score 20 a night for you. But this is a much more well-rounded team where they're a lot more cohesive, at least on paper. They for all we know, like things could be a lot worse than it is, but I think the outlook of looking at it and saying like they have went in and kind of, I think, went away from ego basketball and kind of taking an approach of building a more cohesive, like we're all put together type of team where each player has a certain skill set. And I think the one thing I've seen from Adam Fisher is getting his players to believe in what he's trying to do. And I think if the team is fully bought into what they're doing, and he's like, we're going to play this style of basketball, we're going to do this, then I think this team is a lot more competitive than people will see.
What do you think, Ron?
I'm on Jay with like is a more cohesive unit, and that's something that we haven't been able to really see from like Adam Fisher's teams going into his third year. His first year he comes in, it was really kind of just putting players in together because Aaron McKee got let go. Cleve Battle left, Damian Dunn left. You're kind of forcing people into like other roles. Isaiah Miller was being more of a scorer when he's more of a facilitator, more of a ball handler. You were just trying to get what you could get going into that first year. Obviously saw that worked out with that lightning in the bottle run, but then even last year got all these big name guys, and then outside forces kind of like derailed it. Like whether it was injuries, whether it was like suspensions, you couldn't really see that team go to its full potential, even though you brought in all these guys. And even then, there were times even when they were at quote unquote max health, max strength, they looked inconsistent. They couldn't score. Or they're scoring in bunches. The defense was, we've talked about, the offense was great, but the defense was as good as the offense was, the defense was bad. Like we can go for minutes about that, but we don't have to. And so now you get a team where, Adam Fisher said it on Tuesday, every player they brought in has a purpose. Every person has a role. You talk about Masai Gillard being that Shane Dezonie kind of type role. This the first time they had like shot blocking force for the first time in these now in these first 3 years of Adam Fisher with Jim Eifeld coming here. Yes, you bring in CJ Hines, who's going to be that scorer. Yeah, he might not be like what Jamal Mashburn was, but that's still a scorer. NCAA tournament experience. So you still have like players that have experience and are good. We're high level guys coming in, and so I don't feel like it's that. I don't think it's that crazy to kind of not be excited for it. Like this isn't kind of new players. Temple's not the only team going through this. Like this is kind of something that every other team's gonna have to go through, and they dealt with it the best way they can with bringing in guys they know fit the system what they're trying to build on paper right now.
We're saying that they still have to go out and I get what you guys are saying. They still have to go out and prove that they can be cohesive, but that is like you said, Ryan, like you said, Jay and Colin, like everybody has to prove that they can do that. I'll kind of plug again that my interview with Jordan Mason. I asked him like, hey, you and a lot of other guys in this program, a lot of other guys around the country, this is not just your first time transferring. This is like your second time transferring, or for some other people, it's their third. How do you build that cohesiveness? Because I asked Jordan Mason if he had met any of his new teammates yet. He said no. He said, I'm kind of paraphrasing here. He said, not long before I jumped on with you, I was on with Bobby Jordan. Bobby was his lead recruiter, and he said he had one of the other players with him. I just talked to him. When Jordan Mason was here on his official visit, he didn't meet any of the current players. They were all home. But he kind of just said, and again, I'm very much paraphrasing what he told me. He said, this is what college basketball is right now. He said, starting next week, we'll get used to each other. He said, by the time we get enough time around each other, we'll probably be to the point we're almost sick of each other. This is just what you do now. So I do think, again, I think there is that potential for these guys to know their roles better. Obviously, they wholeheartedly have to go out and prove it. If they can stay healthy, if Jemai Felt stays healthy, yeah, again, Keith, get the skepticism, totally get it, totally understand where you're coming from on a Temple level, on a macro level with college hoops. But I think, for whatever fans care about, maybe they don't want to hear us say this. I think it's going to be an interesting season to cover. Nurbanu Suheen, our friend from Temple. Since there's been no games lately, what's everyone been doing so far / plans for the summer heat? Jay, do you, Nurbanu, have any fun plans for the summer?
She leaves for Turkey in July. So I know she's excited about that. So most of our plans we've already kind of done them. Nothing big. Went up to Hershey a couple of times. I showed her the old stomping grounds, Milton Hershey. Just told
Jay
her, I was like,
once
yeah,
said,
that's where I got.
I know this
Yeah,
park like the back of my hand.
yeah, I know this park like the back of my hand. This is where I got jumped one time, just stuff like that, just be like, yeah, just
What? You got jumped at Hershey Park?
no, I'm joking.
Oh, okay.
No, I would no,
I was gonna say, Jesus.
no. I'm saying like on campus. Even then, I'd not say I got jumped on campus either, but it's a lot of fun. But yeah, so that was primarily our little summer adventure.
So you've been up to Hershey. Colin, what's shaking in Annapolis right now?
I basically have spent my days so far about 2 to 2.5 hours in the gym every morning because I have nothing better to do, and then I
Sick
work,
flex. I've been to the gym for a couple hours.
and then I work at my restaurant in downtown most nights. And in between that, I sit on my living room couch and watch TV. I watched and finished The Sopranos for the first time, which was like my early summer project for myself, and now I'm kind of bored without that. So,
Give me, like, if you could, in a minute, what'd you think of The Sopranos? I know it's not a show that can be encapsulated into a minute, but
one of like probably my favorite show I've watched.
Hmm.
It was 4 straight hours on the couch. I'd be like, all right, just one more episode. It'd be a cliffhanger. All right, I can do one more episode. And all the episodes are like an hour long. So next thing I know it goes from noon to 5 p.m. and I haven't moved because I just watched like 4 or 5 straight episodes. It was just encapsulating and I loved it.
there you go, Ryan. Got a new dog?
Yeah. My summer's kind of been like the same as like Collins. I kind of been wake up.
4 hours in the gym?
Nah, not that. It's honestly just I'm on puppy duty right now, so I kind of have to stay home during the day when my family's at work and my younger brother's at school. Make sure like she's not like destroying the entire house. Then I kind of go down to Barnes Noble where I work. So I work there from like maybe like 4 to 10. Kind of come back, kind of relax. I've been binge watching shows. That's kind of been my thing.
Did anybody watch Your Friends and Neighbors? It's good. It's good.
Is it a show?
Yeah, on Apple with
Oh.
John Hamm, Olivia Munn. My wife teases me all the time, and with good reason. I think I am truly locked in when I'm in an old school movie theater and my phone is off. I like get distracted easily, but I've been locked in on that show. So I don't know if there's going to be a second season of it. It was really good.
Yeah,
But you haven't seen it?
Nah, right now I'm on season 5 of Sex and the City right now. I've been binge watching that.
Wow.
Dude.
I actually there was when I was doing my research for one around this date, I found that Sex in the City, its first season dropped like a couple like however long ago, like tomorrow, like June 6th, like whatever day. And I was like, I don't think anyone will understand this if I include this. And I was like, I don't know if there's any big Sex in the City watchers on the
June 6th, 1998.
You know the exact date? That's amazing. You guys are so much younger than me, and yet you have more Sex in the City knowledge.
Me and Ethan were like just kind of bored one day. We're like, yo, we should watch. My mom was like, would you watch Sex in the City? We're like, like let's see. And me and him got hooked. I love that show so much.
Yeah, I can't believe we're talking this much Sex in the City on the scoop. But Nurbanu, yeah, I think I'll try to get to the beach as often as possible. And I have a birthday coming up. I don't want to talk about how old I'm going to be or who I share my birthday with, but hopefully that'll be fun. next week. Yeah, just trying to, I don't know, get outside, get to the beach, watch a little TV where I can, knock out some episodes of the Scoop, and get as many on or around the state questions correct as I can. So, Jay, I'm
Well,
glad
see,
you got.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know about that one. That last one up for debate. But yeah,
Was that Nirbanu's first trip to Hershey, or had she been out there before or not?
she had never been up there before. We went up there because we all Ryan Meir lives in Harrisburg, and we also
Yeah.
went and saw him. We had like a nice friends, like friends, but well, it was supposed to be a barbecue. Things didn't work out. The grill malfunctioned. So that was a whole thing. But we're in the area. I was like, we're not gonna go back till later. I was like, oh, I'll go show you around the mill in Hershey, and stuff because I don't have anything else to do until now I do. I start my internship Monday.
Yeah,
And I've been
even quiet.
I've been anticipating it, just waiting to do anything. I've watched the new season of You, which I thought was great. But I've been so bored.
When are we getting the new Ted Lasso season? That's like a year away, right?
Yeah, I
Me too.
hope relatively soon. But I'm excited and to see which direction they're going in it. I've heard rumors that it's supposed to be like a following the women's team.
Yeah.
I think they said that on the New Heights podcast, right?
Yeah.
Where Jason Sudeikis was on it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So, Nirbanu, that's a hopefully solid overview of what our summer plans are. Sienna Conahan chiming in with our mailbag question. What's one new Temple commit from each sport you're most excited about? Jay, start us off. Who are you excited about from each sport? We'll go women's hoops, men's hoops, and football.
I think for me, I have been very interested to see for the longest time the women's basketball team go in and get a forward, and I think get a forward who can play that that role for them like that. I think we've seen in previous times where I think they always kind of the transport is always their biggest opportunity to go and get forwards, where we saw like a Ernest Rivera and Amaya Oliver last year. So I was really interested to see. I'm really interested to see what Chloe Miller can do from the ECU transfer. I think like obviously I know their story was that like she was between Temple before and then chose ECU. So I'm really interested to see what she can do.
Do we want to do Jay takes women's hoops, Colin takes a sport, and you take a sport?
Yeah, that works.
All right, Colin, let's take what do you want? You guys want to do rock, paper, scissors for next choice? Let's do this. A virtual rock, paper, scissors.
Con, are we going best two out of three for this?
Of course.
Bet.
One.
What does winner get and what does loser get?
The winner picks whatever sport he wants. 1, 2, 3, shoot. You guys both went.
This is tough for-
One, 2, 3.
I think Colin beat you. That was rock, scissors.
All right, we got one more.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors. Rock,
This is a
paper,
feudal
scissors, shoot. Did you scissors again?
Yeah, that was scissors.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors.
All right, Colin got you. All right, Colin, what's your choice? What sport and what recruit?
I'll do football. I'll just look at the spring window that they've done, and I'll go with either one of the wide receivers, either Colin Chase or JoJo Bermudez. We know that they wanted to get a wide receiver out of the portal in the spring. Casey Keeler had said that. And then with a lot of they had a lot of returning production, but Coach Keeler wasn't very enthusiastic about what they had in the room and knew that they could use a little more firepower in that room. And I think Colin Chase put up some solid numbers at St. Thomas, Minnesota last year, and Jojo Bermudez comes over from Delaware. I think both could really have a role in this offense at the receiver position, can easily earn a spot as one of the starting wide receivers. So those are and one or two. Sorry, Sienna, I'm gonna bend your rules a little bit here, but I'll pick the wide receivers.
Ryan, what do you think? Jay took women's hoops. Colin took football. Men's hoop recruit that you're most excited about.
I'm gonna picture my felt, honestly, just because we kind of talked about earlier. This is the first part time for a season that Temple men's ball from the Wild is gonna have a force and that a blocking, rebounding force, something that's really, really helping their defense that we know was one of the worst in the country last year. Bringing him over here, I know Coach Eager had a really big part in bringing him with that relationship. He's someone here that I'm really excited to kind of see. Know he had those 2 ACL tears, but Adam Fisher I know is really, really excited about him. But the most he says, how many 22-year-old sophomores do you really get 21-year-old sophomores, my bad, do really get. So I'm really kind of excited to kind of see how he kind of fits into that team, whether it's starting or it's like as that like first person coming off the bench.
I'm gonna go if I get a selection here, be the wild card. Not really a wild card. I'm gonna go. It sounds like low hanging fruit. Giovanni McCoy for me. He has a chance to. I don't want to say make or break Temple's season, and I do think that Evan Simon, like Casey said the other day, what at least a few times he's like Evan's a dude. He's still gonna have a chance to compete, and I think that Evan Simon's a better quarterback than what I don't say what he's shown. I mean, he was constantly running for his life last year, but they brought in Giovanni McCoy for a reason. Had three really good seasons at Idaho, 3 touchdowns, 6 picks last year. Eventually lost the job at Oregon State, but this is his last season to prove what he can do. I think he could really thrive in this offense and what Tyler Walker wants to do. And if he plays and hits another level in his production, yeah, I think you could be looking at like a 7-5 season if they get that type of production out of him. So I'm really looking forward to covering his season, his final college season at Temple. So that'll do it for this week. Thank you for all the mailbag questions. Some good stuff this week. We'll be back next week and hope you guys are enjoying your early summer plans, and we'll talk to you soon.